Hello there, welcome to another episode of the Valkyria Chronicles with Ungainly Titan. So at this point, the Emperor Maximilian and Sylvania have gone into the Barious Desert with a force of Imperial troopers, and our heroes are sent in after to look for them. So they've been searching around in the Barious Desert, and they find some Imperial troopers, and that kicks off the next encounter, the next engagement. The Barious Desert doesn't appear to be a natural desert. It appears to have something to do with the Valkyr, but also something to do with the so-called Dark Sin calamity or catastrophe, which is something that occurred in the mythological past. I mean, the whole war waged by the Valkyria against the Dark Sin seems to have occurred in the mythological past, and the powers of the Valkyr, or credited to the Valkyr, seem to be mythological in nature as well, at least as far as anybody's concerned at this point in time. Also, the nature of the Dark Sin calamity seems to be up in the air. It's not clear, it's not made clear at any point what exactly it is, and it's somewhat disputed. Asara doesn't actually believe in it, for instance. She considers there's no historical evidence that suggests that it actually happened. But something weird did happen, because the desert is apparently quite an odd and unusual place. There's lots of strange ruins, walls with mysterious holes in them, and trenches gouged onto the earth, and an extraordinary lack of wind erosion on all the features, as far as I'm concerned. Now, I think I'd been sorting through my videos a little bit earlier, so when I deployed for this battle, I followed the suggestion. I took snipers, and I didn't use them properly, as you will see in the course of the video, and I'll talk about it in the as it occurs. But one of the things that I made quite a mess of this battle in a number of ways, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't the only attempt that I made. I definitely have a memory of losing this battle at least once due to the destruction of the Edelweiss quite early on, because the enemy have quite a few lancers forward deployed, and if you move the Edelweiss out of the barracks quite early, the AI would quite happily use the lancers and use the command points to get a couple of lancers into position, and then just blow the Edelweiss off the map if you don't have the engineering support necessary to keep it alive. Now, it has been my experience as well that I think they have enough lancers there to make it happen. There are 3 or 4 lancers within shooting range of it, or marching range of it. Now, as you can see here, there is on the right hand side 8 to zoom in, zoom out, and I never noticed, not for the entirety of this battle, and I'm not even sure for the subsequent battle. I'm not sure at what point, well, I didn't use snipers in the subsequent battle, but I'm not sure at what point that I realised I could zoom the sniper's view and actually get reliable headshots at these kind of ranges, which is a bit of a pity, because I think it would have been a lot easier battle if I'd actually used the snipers more effectively. The other thing I discovered in this battle as well, snipers are quite limited in some respects. They've only got 3 rounds of ammunition, and to make use of them more effectively, one has to resupply them sometimes, and therefore an engineering unit beside a sniper rather than a scout would probably be more useful. The engineering unit just has to walk adjacent to the sniper, and the sniper is automatically resupplied, so it doesn't cost the engineer any valuable action that way. But yes, over the course of this battle, I have massively underestimated or underutilized the snipers. Now, don't shoot my own people. No, he's blue. He's blue. No blue and blue. No, red. Yeah, one of them. So, that said, I've actually had a decent amount of effectiveness as well, more than I had any right to expect, given the range that I was operating at and the fact that I didn't use the zoom. So I thought, okay, I'll move her back, and that was all sort of easy targets. Now, there's a couple of snipers on the enemy headquarters position. I would have been better off if I had realised about the zoom, using them to take those out. Now, I moved this guy forward. I shot the lancer from here, but I missed entirely. And then I moved the sniper forward, and I wanted to get into a better position to shoot other enemies, but I don't know if I, again, utilised them that well, because, again, I wasn't making use of the zoom. There are other things as well that I was not doing. I know I have Largo deployed as part of my initial deployment. He's a Lancer, and I actually started moving him forward, and in hindsight, I'd have been much better off if I actually hadn't deployed Largo as part of my initial deployment, or once I had deployed him, actually just withdrew him, used him, brought him back to the headquarters, to the base, withdrew him from the battlefield, and then when I captured the enemy base, brought him forward. This was another mistake that I made several times, maybe a couple of times in this battle, but I think I learned this from this one. I don't think I made it in subsequent battles, but I moved into cover before I fired, before I used the fire phase. I'd have been better off if I stopped in the open and fired at the Lancer and then moved into cover, because when I moved into cover I had blocked my line of sight and I didn't have enough action points left to move back out of cover, which is probably just as well, because if I moved back out of cover, then she would have been permanently out of cover and vulnerable to fire from enemy units. So yeah, you're better off taking your fire phase before you go into cover, and then we've done the same thing here. Now here it's more excusable in that I just simply run out of movement. I underestimated the amount of movement it takes to get a shock trooper up to that location, and I could have approached it more from the way Alicia's approaching it, so that I would have had a clear field of fire, because I think the wall will block me to a certain extent from the direction of the enemy headquarters. So if Alicia and Hannah's had both fired at this guy, Alicia's still vulnerable actually to the sniper on the roof there, but if they'd both fired at the Lancer, the chances were that the Lancer wouldn't have survived the encounter. And I've run out of action points, so it's now the command points, so it's now the enemy's turn. So the enemy gets into action, and the first thing they do is bring their Lancer forward, because they're going to attack the Edelweiss, and they're quite aggressive in this particular battle about attacking the Edelweiss with those forward Lancers. And if I think one of the other versions that I played, I didn't move the troopers as far forward. I think I only stayed at that trench behind them, and the enemy Lancers were a lot more aggressive than they are in this version of it. Whereas this one, the troopers, because I advanced in a more forward position, are more vulnerable to the snipers. So I think they're going to prioritize the snipers and make use of the snipers to shoot vulnerable targets rather than the Lancers, even though taking out the Edelweiss ends the game. So the Edelweiss is now, well, it's about to lose its mobility completely, and Marina has just down. So I've lost both my snipers. Now if I can rescue them, they're not permanently lost. So far, I think the major way that I've permanently lost people is that they have died in exposed positions, and an enemy trooper has actually moved onto their location while they were out of combat, when they were injured and therefore out of the combat. If an enemy trooper takes the location, but you have a downed trooper on, that trooper is basically dead. They're removed from the game completely. There are exceptions. I think Largo is an exception. I think Rosie's an exception. They both are plot protected, and they withdraw instead of get taken out of the game completely. So now the Edelweiss is starting to actually feel the effects of the repeated Lancer rounds. And the other thing that I find is quite deceptive is that Vulcan keeps saying minor damage sustained. And yes, generally as a percentage of hit points, it's about the same each time. But it builds up, and once you're halfway down, it's no longer minor damage. Your tank is in serious trouble, and you really need to get it fixed as soon as possible. So it is back around to my turn, and I'm going to activate Ramsey, and I'm going to go up to bring medical assistance to Marina, so that I don't lose her, and I have a sniper back sometime soon. I can't remember whether I have a spare sniper or not, but I don't think I have really got the resources to bring one on right now. Some details about the video footage that I should mention before I go any further. Yeah, I'm going to repair the tank now, but is that I'm playing it at about 120% I think of normal speed. The whole battle took about an hour and a half. I'm speeding it up because it cuts down the hesitations that I make when I'm thinking about things and the mouse just hovering over it, making decision making. Also, the battle fits nicely into two different parts, and it brings it into about a half hour for each segment, which fits nicely with kind of the maximum of what I can practically upload in a given time without tying up my internet for way too long. There's still no word on the upgrades or anything like it. So we've got Hannes, and we're going to get rid of that Lancer that's been causing so much trouble, and now we've an opportunity to move him. So we're going to redeploy him a little bit. Well, we're going to deploy him back into cover. I thought it was going to be a bit more adventurous there because I tended to be a bit overextended a lot in this game. I'm going to bring on some reinforcements because I've lost 2 people, and I decided that... And I'm not going to replace them like for like. I'm not going to replace them with snipers. I don't think I had 2 spare snipers anyway. I would have had to wait a turn. But I think at this point, the dynamic requires different types of troops. So I'm bringing on Rosie, who is a shock trooper, and I'm going to bring on Cherry, who is a scout. And a quick check to see that there was nothing in Cherry's CV, so to speak, that would make it difficult for her to perform on the desert. There are characters that have desert allergies, for instance, and you wouldn't want them on a desert map. Frisia has no such problem. She is a child of the desert, actually, so I think she performs better than usual on this kind of environment. Now, I haven't given her enough forward movement here to actually get a clear shot at anybody, but we now have a shot at the sniper. Don't quite manage to take him out. We get a long way down, but we don't take him out, and we move her back, and then I think I activate her again. So out we pop again, and no, don't, wasn't him you shot before. Forget about him. Take out, focus fire, yes. Back on the sniper. So we should be able to take the sniper out, assuming we hit with any round at all, and we've managed to do so, and that is the sniper out of action. And then, well, I could move forward, I could have moved back into cover as well, and I can end my current phase where I am. Now, I'm making a mistake here. I leave Frisia on her own. I don't actually bring up any support to her, and I think I'd have been better off doing that. If you have 2 units together, fairly close together, and an enemy gets within their kind of aggro range where they start shooting back or shooting at them as they're walking past, then any unit that's within a similar distance to them, that's pretty close to them, will join in on that shooting. So you could have multiple units, and even if they make the defensive fire, or even if you're attacking, you can get multiple people together. They'll all provide supporting fire, and it will add to the damage that you're going to do to the enemy target. Once again, I didn't quite have the movement to bring Hannes into the trench properly, and we want to get a shot of the Lancer a little bit too far away to get a reliable kill. Lancers are pretty tough, and this is as close as I'm going to get to him. So if I want to do any more, I'm going to have to activate him again, and that's exactly what I do, which means that if I activate him again, I can't bring support up to Frisia, for instance, and I don't manage to kill the Lancer, which is a bit of a pity. So that's it. I'm out of command points, so it is now the enemy's turn, and the enemy are now about to move. So we'll see what they get up to. They have a number of options. Reinforcements will arrive. They're going to request reinforcements, which means that they'll be requested to the headquarters that you click on. You won't know this, you just know that they're requesting reinforcements, and I don't think it gives you any clear indications to how many they reinforce. That's all hidden in the fog of war. You just see an action point going off, but the odds are they're requesting more than one. And we have some shuffle movement around, going around the enemy headquarters area, and we see a shock trooper attacking Frisia, and she gives as good as she got there, so he's going to see activating again. He's activating again, he's on his own above and in cover, and he does a lot of damage to her. She's got very few hit points left. She hasn't quite managed to kill him though, and he still has got a few hit points left as well. Light tank takes a shot at Hannes but doesn't land anywhere nearby. It is, if you're going to activate a tank, it's worth doing that, and yeah, I find that funny, even though it's my trooper and it's got hit in the face with an anti-tank round. I think I find it, chances of being hit by anti-tank rounds are rather slim. I've seen it done several times. I've done it myself a few times, and chances of hitting the other unit are pretty low. But I think the other thing that I just find terribly amusing is that if I manage to rescue Hannes, I could bring him on later on in the same battle, even though he's been hit in the face with an anti-tank round. So we have Jane. So Jane is between two walls and can't see anything at the moment, and I think I'm a little bit disorientated here, in that I'm not quite sure what I want to do with Jane, except I want to run around and then shoot that Lancer. So we've managed to almost completely wipe out the Lancer, and then I completely forget about the mine and walk Jane over the mine. She survived. I'm quite impressed, actually. Most characters would die if they walk over a mine like that. However, Jane is in rather poor shape and she could be knocked down with a feather at this point, so we're going to use the Ragnade to boost up her hit points somewhat and give her a better survival chance than leaving her the way she is. It takes an action, so she can't do anything else other than just boost the Ragnade and absorb it into herself. Again, I'm not very efficient. I probably shouldn't have ended the current action here. I should probably have actually, if I was going to move Jane further, I should have moved her and then ended the action afterwards. And I'm going to move Alicia. Put her into a position where she can shoot at that Lancer. Take a few shots at the Lancer and hope for the best. Alicia doesn't put him down. She comes pretty close, but she doesn't quite manage it. And she goes over and calls medical assignment to Hannes. However, Alicia has fired, so she's not going to be in a position to fire at the Lancer. Though she has plenty of movement left and I could push her further forward, but I don't see any great advantage in doing so. Now I have Jane. Jane doesn't have a lot of movement left, but I can use the action, her action to take out the Lancer. So now she has cleared away one of the Lancers, and there's only one remaining Lancer, and that's as far north as she can go. She kind of has the wall between her and the enemy sniper, but he does have the option of stepping beyond that cover and catching her anyway. I activate her again, but I'm really into diminishing territory. I wanted to get her into cover. I didn't want her standing out in the open. She does manage to take out the second Lancer, which is good, because I wanted to get rid of them. The tank is now relatively safe, but Jane isn't exactly out of in the all clear. It's still theoretically possible that a sniper or a shock trooper back at the building in front of the enemy base camp could take her out. Time to move up the reinforcements, although in hindsight I think it could safely be said that I probably overreacted by bringing on those reinforcements. That I had enough space to clear out this end of the map and possibly clear out the enemy encampment without bringing on the reinforcements, and therefore I could have played a little bit more, I suppose, aggressively, taking out the enemy camp. Maybe not by now, but certainly take out the enemy camp at around the same number of turns that I did, but with less forces on the ground, and then brought on the extra forces through the new headquarters, so that I didn't have to be spending action points dragging them across the first 200 or 300 meters of open space that's between me and the enemy army. So now we're pushing Largo forward again. He's going to struggle with keeping up with forces like this. So again, it was probably an operational mistake to bring him on at the start and move him forward using action points rather than just leapfrogging him over the current position by using captured headquarters for the same purpose. Although there's only really one captured headquarters, the one at the eastern end of the map, and the final enemy base is actually the final enemy base, and if I capture that one I have won the scenario, so that the issue of reinforcements becomes moot at that point. Now I'm bringing Rosie on, and the same thing, she's much too far back, probably not as useful to have brought her on at this stage of the game, that I could probably have accomplished what I needed to accomplish with the existing forces, and I don't even have the action points necessary to bring Rosie close enough to Frisia to actually offer Frisia any kind of meaningful support. Even if an enemy shock trooper were to attack Frisia, it would do it out of the line of sight of Rosie, and Rosie would be able to offer the supporting fire that she would normally do for an allied unit. As you can see from the map, we're closing in on the enemy position, and they're continuing to request reinforcements. And I suppose they're going to get a certain amount of reinforcements they bring on. The snipers removed half of Alicia's health there. I should probably have, again, had her kneel down, at least reduce the risks for critical hits and stuff like that, by having her standing up in the open. Now, Frisia's in serious trouble now. There's a shock trooper in an entrenched position just around the corner on the trench network that she's on, and he is putting rounds into her, so she's down precious low health, and she's gone. Frisia has finally paid the price for being hanging out in the flank for 2 turns unsupported. Before that I managed to get any support up to her. Somebody's fired a main tank gun at Alicia. That would have hurt if it hit, but the chances again of it hitting at this range are not great. It would be a complete random event if it had happened. It's not something you would expect in the normal course of a game. So it is back around to me, and yes, at some stage I'm going to have to bring the Edelweiss forward. But for the meanwhile, Rosie's going to come up, evacuate the Allied trooper, Frisia, and Frisia's safely evacuated. So now Rosie's going to go up to the trench network where this guy's in and actually shoot him in the head. Doesn't look like he's differentiated much from this direction, so we're going to put the rounds in where we can and just finish him off, or at least get her halfway down, and then the next attack we'll probably be able to finish him off. Don't quite manage it with 1 action point. These shock troopers are tough, but I can't sit here and leave her alone. This guy has to go, and pretty much everybody in the headquarters has to go. I have to clear out the headquarters and not leave units isolated on their own at the moment, because that's costing me action points, and it's costing me fairly expensively in terms of the ability to advance forward. The amount of time wasted just replacing units that were lost, and trying to get things lined up so that I can actually make some progress here. So we're bringing up the Edelweiss. I've got to avoid the trenches. Still having trouble driving the Edelweiss, but the trenches are a complete showstopper when it comes to the tanks. They effectively act like anti-tank trenches, and the tank can't cross them. They're too wide, and they're not wide enough to drive into, I think. So you can come out. There's a kind of a rise there on the ground that is crossable, but it's difficult. It will slow the tank down a lot. First, I had to spend the whole impulse without being able to shoot at anybody. There was no real valid targets. These guys are at extreme range for any of my guns, and it doesn't come near them. The anti-tank round doesn't come near them, but it might as well shoot them when you can't use the machine gun or the mortar round. And I find the machine gun is generally useless. I think the main effectiveness of the machine gun is defensive. When an enemy is approaching or standing near the tank, then the enemy machine gun will fire whenever it gets the opportunity, or your tank's machine gun will fire whenever it gets the opportunity, and that can be quite effective. But using the machine gun as an offensive weapon against individual troopers, I find it's more effective to actually use the mortar round, if you can bring the mortar round to bear, which is not always the case. Sometimes you can bring the machine gun to bear, and the circumstances you can't bring the mortar to bear. You haven't seen it yet, but later on you'll see a Valkyria lance in action, and I'm just looking at that hole there beside Cherry, was it? And I was just wondering, would that be what made the hole? It seems right. So we bring Largo as far forward as we can bring him, and put some cover between him and the enemy snipers, but he's too far away to significantly or do any damage to the tank, really. So I think we've there's still a guy defending there was 2 guys defending the position in front of the enemy base, and these guys need to go, and then we have cleared out the base. And Alicia, we're bringing Alicia forward. We're going to run her along the trench line, and then we're going to get out and make sure I don't walk over the mine, because walking over mines is another one of my bad habits. Can't get a clear the shot of the guy's head. I don't have enough movement to get forward and get the shot from in front, so I'm trying to get the shot from the side, and I don't quite finish off the shock trooper, but I bring him down to about half health, and he's missed with his return fire. So that is one action point, one command point left. So I'm going to use the command point to bring Rosie forward. She stops there because of the enemy trooper, and I think that's him out of the battle as well. The same thing applies to the enemy side. We take out the shock trooper, and we've now, I think, cleared the defenders. There might be still one left. We bring Rosie as far forward as possible, and we now finish the phase because, yes, we're out of command points and there's only one enemy left. So, sniper and a reinforcement shock trooper has arrived. So there's 2 enemy units facing 3 of mine effectively, and the sniper comes around, puts a big hole in Rosie, but Rosie's having none of that, and she shoots back and kills him. So there's the second last enemy defender down, and then the shock trooper comes forward to shoot at Rosie. So Rosie gets a shot at him, and he's coming into position, and then she'll get her return fire after his attack fire, and she doesn't quite kill him, but he is in very poor health. And he activates a second time, and he just crawls forward slightly and triggers some aggro from Cherry or Alicia, so one of the two of them, and fires at Rosie again, misses, and Rosie actually finishes him off this time. So enemy does some other stuff. A tank, yes, fires at Rosie, but there's walls between the tank and Rosie is completely safe from that round. Unknown stuff happening in unknown places, which are the question marks, and now it's back around to me again. So Alicia's going to come in here, and she's going to take over the base, and I'm going to stop it here. This will be continued in part 2, so I will see you then. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a like and a share. Feel free to comment, and if you have not already done so, please subscribe to the channel. I will catch you all again soon. Bye for now.